Good morning. I'm Ward 1 Councilmember Brianne Nadeau, the Chair of the Committee on Public Works and Operations. Today is Wednesday, December 17th, 2025, and I'm calling to order this meeting of the Committee on Public Works and Operations to conduct a hearing on B26-0422. The time is 9:31 a.m. Today, we will consider B26-422, the Glazer Licensing Standards and Certification Act of 2025. This bill was introduced by Councilmember Louis George, co-introduced by Councilmembers Allen and Fruman, and co-sponsored by me. The bill establishes an occupational license for glazer and glazing contracts, skilled tradespeople who cut, install, and remove glass in buildings. There's currently no licensure requirement for this profession in the district, whereas most other states do require a license. The Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection oversees the district's non-health occupational and professional boards, including the Board of Industrial Trades, which would regulate glazers under this bill. I look forward to hearing from all our public and government witnesses today. Some reminders on the logistics for those joining us. In addition to being on Zoom, the hearing is being live broadcast at youtube.com, DC Council Public Works. All witnesses testifying on behalf of an organization will be given 5 minutes for testimony, and for organizations with multiple witnesses testifying, only one will receive 5 minutes. All other witnesses will be given 3 minutes for public testimony. When it is your turn to join a panel, I will call your name. You will receive an invitation on your screen to be promoted. Please accept that in order to access your camera and your microphone. Okay. We will now begin our first panel. Jay Simpson, Darius Perry, Ricardo Cortez, Antonio Overton, Brian Cortian, Nate Lewis, Travis Nevins, Deputy Director of Organizing at IUPAT, Scott Kennett, Program Manager, AGMT Certification Process. Jay Simpson, when you're ready, you may begin.
Oh, thank you. My name is Jay Simpson, and I'm a glazing employer. I do support the Glazing Standards and Licensing Act of 2025 because, as a requirement, it directly impacts and emphasizes the basic needs of worker safety, public protection, and the long-term health of our industry as a whole. Glazing is a skilled and high-risk trade by default. Our work involves the installation of large glass panels, metal panels, and various other building envelope facade materials. Most times, these systems are installed multiple stories above pedestrians and the general public. Despite this, our industry lacks consistent standards to ensure the people performing this work are properly trained and qualified. This act has been presented to ensure that not only is quality craftsmanship the standard, but it also better ensures the safety of the people who occupy or frequently use the establishments and facilities in the district. First, this act improves job site safety. Licensing establishes a baseline for training and competency standards, which help reduce injuries, accidents, and costly mistakes. As an employer, I know that safer job sites protect not only the workers, but their family, the public, and the construction industry as a whole. Second, it protects consumers and building owners. Glass systems are critical components of any building, whether a new build or a renovation. It's not just a cosmetic feature. Licensing helps ensure installations are performed correctly and according to manufacturer specifications, which help prevent failures and other long-term liabilities. Third, it creates a fair and competitive marketplace. Responsible employers who pay attention to and invest in training and safety are often undercut by unqualified contractors who cut corners. Licensing levels the playing field, so competition is based on quality and professionalism, not shortcuts and incompetent prices. Finally, this act supports workforce development by strengthening training and career pathways in the glazing trade. This is essential for attracting new workers and meeting a growing demand for skilled labor, particularly in the glazing industry. This legislation raises standards without limiting opportunity for anyone. It truly does make our industry safer, stronger, and more professional. For these reasons, I urge you to support the Glazing Standards and Licensing Act of 2025. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And we will now hear from Brian Cortian.
Good morning. My name is Brian Cordian. I'm a glazer by trade, and I serve as the business manager of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades District Council 51, representing skilled glazers and installers across the metro area. I'm here today to express my strong support of B26-0422, legislation that will establish professional licensing standards for installers of glazers, or installers for glazers, and let me repeat myself, all who install glazing products and systems, not just glazers. Our industry is one that requires precise technical knowledge and a deep understanding for safety protocols. Installing glazing systems is not simply a matter of placing glass in frames, setting prefabricated units, entryways, or interior glass systems. It involves complex systems, structural safety considerations, and the proper handling of materials that, if done incorrectly, can result in serious injury or property damage during installation or even months after the installation. Yet currently, anyone can perform the work without proof of training or competency. B26-0422 will ensure there is a requirement that qualified trained professionals are permitted to work as glazers. Licensing will elevate workplace safety, improve the quality of workmanship, and protect workers, the public, end users, and owners. For contractors, it means more confidence that their work will meet the industry and regulatory standards while providing an industry standard for installers' knowledge as well as skills. For consumers, it means the assurance that installations are performed by trained professionals who understand the skills and have the technical requirements of the trade. IUPAT District Council 51 members are proud of the training and apprenticeship programs we operate. We provide rigorous hands-on experience combined with technical education. This bill recognizes the value of professional training and encourages all installers of glazing systems to meet the same high standard. It is a step forward to ensure that our industry is safer, more accountable, and better respected. We strongly urge the committee to support B26-0422 and advanced licensing standards for glazers. By doing so, you are not only raising the professionalism of the trade, but also protecting the safety of workers and the public alike. On a personal note, as a proud glazer, I am also proud of the work that has been done to this point to represent the glazing industry, glazers, and the request for licensing for the glazing industry, which in my opinion has been long overdue. I hope all those in the industry have the same pride and desire to ensure that this craft is held into a compared standard of those recognized by the District of Columbia's Board of Industrial Trades. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Travis Nevins.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. My name is Travis Nevins. I'm speaking on behalf of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades in support of the Glazer Licensing Standards and Certification Act 2025. I have worked in the architectural glass metal industry for more than 25 years, and I'm confident that the need for standards has never been greater. Voluntary certifications and standards have improved outcomes, and their growing use reflects an industry-wide understanding that skills matter. However, voluntary standards can be removed from project specifications at any time. Licensure establishes a baseline that cannot be bypassed that prevents a race to the bottom and ensures minimum standards for quality and building performance are consistently met. Energy performance depends on skilled glazing work. The district's building energy performance standards rely heavily on the proper installation of the building envelope. Even the most advanced door, window, or curtain wall system will fail to meet its rated performance if it's installed incorrectly. Owners are investing significant resources in high-performance glazing system such as advanced thermal brakes, large format unitized assemblies, electrochromic glass, and even integrated photovoltaic technologies. Passive house projects such as Weinberg Commons, Asbury at Berry Farms, and 3450 apartments demonstrate how critical proper installation is to achieving these goals. If installers lack the knowledge to install these systems correctly, the investment is wasted and the district falls short of its energy performance commitments. Licensure ensures installers have demonstrated the proficiency to deliver the performance demanded by BEPS, Passive House, and modern building standards. Licensing also strengthens the workforce and the industry. It establishes glazing as a recognized profession with a clear capstone for skill development. Licensure improves retention, signals verified proficiency, and helps address widespread misclassification in construction. Misclassification undermines quality, destabilizes our workforce, and often results in unpaid overtime and high turnover. Many contractors feel pressured into this model simply to remain competitive and assume significant joint employer liability as a result. Licensure supports properly trained personnel and fair competition by removing the advantage held by low road contractors. The district already licenses construction trades whose work directly affects building performance and public outcomes. Plumbers, electricians, HVAC techs, asbestos workers, and elevator trades are all licensed in DC. Glazing clearly belongs in this group. Given the complexity and the cost of avoidable failures, glazing warrants the same oversight and accountability as these other trades. Cost concerns can be addressed without burdening workers or contractors. Grants and subsidies have been historically available to offset certification and testing costs through industry partners, including the National Glass Association, the Frameless Hardware Company, STI Firestop, International Finishing Trades Institute, the Labor Management Cooperation Initiative, and also local associations. Contractors have also covered these costs in the past because they see the value in raising industry standards and eliminating low road competition. Further reducing costs, registered apprenticeship graduates can become licensed while the rules are being promulgated, allowing the workforce to be front loaded with qualified licensed glazers immediately. Additionally, there are already 60 AGMT certified glazers in the DMV area who work in DC and are ready to be licensed. Also, in rulemaking, 25% of the crew should be licensed. The intent of this bill is to license top-level mechanics. Composite ironworker and glazer crews perform the same work in DC. Ironworkers who perform glazing work would have the same opportunity to test for licensure as well as any other worker that performs this scope of work. Composite crews will continue to function as they do today, and workers will not be required to obtain licensure unless they choose to be part of that licensed 25%. Contractors support this bill. Composite crews would remain intact, while licensure removes the unfair advantage of low road contractors who rely on misclassification and untrained labor. The result is a more level playing field that rewards quality, training, and compliance. For these reasons, I urge the committee to advance B26-0422. The district has already recognized the importance of these standards in other trades. Glazing belongs alongside them. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Before we turn to Scott Kennett, I just want to note, Antonio Overton, you're meant to be on this panel. So if you could please accept the invitation to be promoted, you'll be able to go after Scott at the end of this panel. If it is not a convenient time for you, you don't have to turn on your camera, or please send us a message so we can understand the logistics here, but we definitely want to give you your chance to testify on this panel. Okay, Scott, go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairperson and members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Scott Kennett. I am the program manager for the AGMT certification program. I am testifying in support of the B26-0422 Glazer Licensing Standards and Certification Act of 2025 on behalf of the Architectural Glass and Metal Certification Council, AGMCC, which is a 501c3 not-for-profit glazing industry organization. The mission of the AGMCC is to improve the safety and quality of glazer installation for construction projects and reduce construction risk for project stakeholders building a metal technician certification program in accordance with the ISO 17024 accreditation requirements for personnel certification as assessed by the ANSI National Accreditation Board, ANAB, through which the program is accredited. The AGMT certification program is for glazing technicians to verify they have the construction industry accepted levels of knowledge, skills, and abilities to safely and properly install glazing systems and set glass as determined by the AGMCC's Independent Board of Construction and Glazing Industry Subject Matter Experts. When the AGMT certification program is utilized in project specifications and building requirements, allows project stakeholders and owners to apply a minimum acceptable standard for installer knowledge and skill. This allows general contractors and project owners that are reviewing project bids to select glazing subcontractors with qualified installers for the project. Glazing systems used in building envelope carry many possible issues that increase construction project risk, from water intrusion to occupant comfort, thermal controls to acoustics, and overall building performance. Technicians work at heights with glass and systems that bring safety risks to themselves and others on the job site. In addition, improperly installed glass on the building facade and glass handrails and other applications can create significant risk to building occupants and the public after installation is completed. To obtain AGMT certification, technicians must provide evidence of having met prerequisites of hours of glazing experience and OSHA safety training. They are then tested in a series of tests, including a knowledge-based written test and multiple hands-on performance-based tests demonstrating the ability to install and weather seal various glazing systems. Each test must be completed with a satisfactory grade to become certified, and the certification must be renewed every 4 years. The program is operated by an independent and accredited third-party certification body on behalf of AGMCC. The AGMT certification program provides a list of certified technicians that is publicly available on the program's website, glazingcertification.com. This makes verification of bidders' credentials simple and fast to those reviewing project bids. The certification program is available to all candidates to apply, and each are evaluated independently and impartially for their qualifications to meet program requirements to earn AGMT certification. The AGMCC supports the proposed B26-0422 with the understanding that providing minimum glazers installer certification requirements provides the best possible outcome for glazing projects and minimizes the risks of project defects that could cause significant extra costs and undesirable outcomes for building performance. Thank you for considering the AGMT certification program to support the Council's goals and improve the quality of glazing installation in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, still trying to get Antonio on this panel. One thing we could do is I think we can just unmute him. See if he wants to testify from oh, here he is. Okay, very good. Okay, so Antonio, when you're ready, you can unmute, turn on your camera if you want, and give your testimony. Oh, and he's gone. Okay, not sure what's going on, but we'll be happy to accept written testimony as well. All right, so friends on this panel, just a couple questions. And I would guess that Travis and Scott, you might be most interested in these. Oh, I'm sorry. Brian, is he with you? Okay. Yes, he can testify from your computer or phone, whichever. Sure, no problem. We'll wait just a minute. Okay. Antonio, when you're ready to testify, go ahead.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I had to log in from a desktop, but I was trying to do it on my phone and it wasn't working.
It's okay. You're here now. We'd be glad to hear your testimony.
Okay, so good morning, council members. My name is Antonio Overton. I'm a strong resident of Ward 8. I come before you today in strong support of the Glazer Standards and Licensing Act of 2025. As a Washington, D.C. resident, myself, I rely heavily on council to ensure that the public buildings and the infrastructure and community facilities are constructed safely and responsibly. Glass and glazing work, it might seem like a small part of construction, but when it's done improperly, it creates safety hazards, energy loss, and also costly failures for taxpayers. The bill that we present to you ensures that the individuals and companies working on critical building envelope systems are properly trained, independently certified, and accountable to nationally recognized safety and quality standards. When it comes to schools, libraries, recreation centers, and public housing, residents deserve that level of assurance. District residents expect our government to invest in public dollars wisely. Requiring licensed and certified companies ensures that investments are durable, efficient, and built to last. This legislation protects our safety, protects our tax dollars, and protects the long-term performance of the buildings we depend on. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I urge council to move forward with this bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Overton. Appreciate your testimony. And thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Everyone, thanks for facilitating. Everyone, thanks for facilitating him getting on the Zoom. I appreciate it. Okay, so here is my question. And again, I mentioned Travis and Scott may have the most to say on this, but everyone is welcome to answer if they wish. So many other states do have a license requirement for glazers, and I hear the arguments that licensing is needed. It makes a lot of sense to me. However, almost all other states do structure it differently than what's proposed under the bill. The main differences are that under this bill, glazers would fall under the Industrial Trades Board instead of the Contractor Board, and that this bill requires a specific exam and certification where most other states do not. And I wanted to understand from those of you in the industry why you think these specific requirements are necessary in the district.
I can chime in first on that if you want. I'll try to be brief. Like I mentioned in my testimony, there are certain specifications that are removed. So certification and standards are great, but sometimes they are removed when a project is ongoing. When we look at states like Rhode Island and Oregon that mandate certification, that they are great. However, they only cover public work. So in DC, with the focus being on building energy performance, this takes you to that next level, right? So Connecticut has licensure for the worker, similar to what you're looking to do here. Many states have glazing licensure for the glazing contractor, again, similar to what you're doing here. The way I look at this is, do you want something that simply looks good on paper, or do you want what really protects owners, end users, and constituents in DC? And in my opinion, this is the ultimate protection for owners, end users, and constituents.
And can you help me understand the difference? Because this is new to me also, is why does putting this under the International Trades Board do that better than putting it under the contracting board?
Well, in my opinion, it makes it on parity with the other licensed trades in DC.
Okay.
So this trade is just as important as electricians, plumbers, and those other trades that I mentioned. There's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't look at glazing and our facades in the same light that we do all these other trades.
Great. Anyone else want to weigh in on that difference, the Industrial Trade Board versus the Contractor Board? Totally fine. That was helpful. And then the other piece of this being the bill requires a specific exam and certification, whereas most other states do not. What's the thinking behind that?
Yes, so AGMT was first launched in 2019 and it's still relatively new in the industry. We have glazers in 36 different states as well as 4 different provinces in Canada. So we're still growing the program. There's just over 2,200 certified glazers around the US and Canada at the moment. Um, so that's part of why this hasn't been adopted. But what truly sets AGMT apart is the fact that this is a hands-on test. It's not just, oh, let me study up for this and I'll pass the written multiple choice test. You have knowledge, skills, and abilities to be able to demonstrate that you can perform the work in a way that's going to minimize defects. And that when it comes to certification, in general, in the personnel certification world, having that hands-on performance-based test is really a next level piece. And we are accredited again through ANAB to the ISO 17024 accreditation standard.
Okay, so this is a new standard in the country that's starting to get across the country, basically.
Yeah, it's a little more than 6 years old at this point, and um, so there's adoption is new, but what has been built has been proven to identify those who will perform work in a way that will minimize defects. The testing process is vetted and been validated time and time again, and it's certainly not an everybody passes. You really do have to know what you're doing in order to pass each section of the testing requirements.
So for states that don't have this, does their legislation or their law predate your existence typically?
Typically, and Travis or Brian can weigh in too, there typically is just not a law. Glazing has been on the back burner or not addressed. And this is an attempt by the industry to develop a certification program to address the need here to identify a qualified glazer. And ultimately that means a certified glazer. But Travis and Brian, please weigh in.
Well, if I could add on the biggest reason to attach AGMT to this licensure is that, like Scott mentioned, it is recognized across North America as the #1 means of identifying proficiency for an architectural glass and metal installer. That being said, it's already been required on 137 projects and counting in the DMV area. So this isn't new to the DMV area. We're just simply memorializing it and ensuring that it isn't removed on projects when folks do want to have a race to the bottom, when projects are influenced by a logo developer or contractor that perhaps don't have the best interest of the constituents in mind.
How does the AGMT certification interact with certified apprenticeships, and how do those relate to one another?
So a certified apprenticeship program is a path toward certification.
Okay.
Having the 7,500 hours required for certification or approximately 5 years of experience is a good path and a training source to ensure that candidates for certification have the right training and knowledge and skills to pass the test, because the idea is that they are a well-rounded glazer. They're not just an expert in curtain wall or an expert in storefront or in sealant, that they can do multiple tasks across the glazer body of knowledge. And that way, we're independent in that sense of whether a candidate comes through an apprenticeship program or does not, as long as they have an OSHA 10 and 7,500 hours of experience that they can verifiably demonstrate to us, they can sit for the test.
Okay. And does the certification testing and the certification process exclude any particular trades that are doing this work?
No, as long as they can demonstrate relevant experience in an OSHA 10, they're allowed to sit for the test.
Okay.
And the test is designed for somebody with 5 years on the job. When we've put it in front of people that have not had that experience, they tend to struggle because we are looking to identify a well-rounded technician who can perform multiple functions under that Glazer body of knowledge.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any parts of this bill that you all would be open to modifying? Okay, that's my answer.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how to
A
answer that.
hush fell over the crowd. Okay.
I think it comes back from the feedback that's provided, to take another look at it. Obviously, if the committee as a whole and industry as a whole is in line and they're relatively supportive of what's going on, then why modify? But if there is items in there of real concern that probably should be addressed one way or the other, even if it gets addressed through the process of the next steps, then I think it's something we have to take in consideration because at the end of the day, this is all about the betterment of the glazing industry and how do we advance it and how do we ensure uh, we're elevating the industry for not just the industry, but also for people looking for long, sustainable careers in this industry. And give them something to continue to work for and to strive for, to be excellent in what in their profession. So obviously, I think that's just more of a conversational piece to be had of what this looks like.
And Travis, you put particular emphasis in your testimony on the building energy performance standards, which comes up a lot here now in the District of Columbia because we've been trying to implement that. A little bit of 2 steps forward, 1 step back around here, but we're trying. Do you see that those standards really as also calling for this type of change in our law?
Yeah, I think ever since I've learned about the BEPS program in DC, I've thought that DC needs standards for the architectural glass and metal installation. I mean, that's where a lot of your energy is lost, and these products are only as good as they're installed. So if they're not installed by professionals, you will not get the energy performance that you're seeking. And there needs to be some sort of standard. And whether that be, licensure, AGMT, you need to have something. And why shortcut it? Let's put the glazers at parity with these other trades, make it a licensed trade, and have a robust way to prove proficiency to get that license and not just a paper tiger license.
Well, thank you very much to this panel. I appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next panel includes Kendall Martin, President of Ironworkers Mid-Atlantic States District Council, Sebastian Fakulek, Political Coordinator, Ironworkers Mid-Atlantic, Amelia Kalma, Director of the Wilkes Initiative on Housing Policy at the DC Policy Center, Chad Reese, Senior Policy Advisor at the Institute for Justice, Fred Cotting, Executive Vice President of the Ironworkers Employers Association, and Matt Tiffo. Kendall Martin, when you're ready, you may begin.
Good morning. Chairperson and members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Kendall Martin. I am the president of Ironworkers Mid-Atlantic States District Council. Here on behalf of Ironworkers Local 5, representing members across Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Our members perform highly skilled, safety-critical work on the district's buildings and infrastructure, including the installation of curtain wall systems, unitized facet systems, and architectural metal assemblies on some of the most complex projects in the city. DC area Ironworkers Local 5 supports strong safety standards, high quality construction, and rigorous training requirements for all trades. However, we must oppose B26-0422 as introduced because it goes far beyond licensing and instead attempts to legislate trade jurisdiction through statute. The bill's definition of glazer explicitly includes curtain wall systems and general architectural glass and metal installation. That language is not incidental. Curtain wall insulation has historically and consistently been performed by ironworkers when the work involves hoisting, rigging, anchorage, and structural alignment. This bill would, for the first time, place that work under the exclusive authority of another trade by law, rather than through long-standing industry practice, collective bargaining agreements, or job site assignment. That is not licensing. That is a jurisdictional reassignment. Jurisdictional disputes are not resolved through legislation for good reason. Construction projects rely on clear scopes, established practices, and the flexibility to assign work to workforce trained to perform it safely and efficiently. When a statute defines an entire category of construction systems as belonging to one trade, it removes the flexibility and invites conflict, delay, and litigation on every affected project. The bill also embeds a single private certification program into law, rather than recognizing federally registered apprenticeship programs that are already subject to public oversight and proven safety standards. Ironworkers complete multi-year Department of Labor registered apprenticeships that include extensive training in rigging, fall protection, crane signaling, and exterior system installation. Precisely the skills required for curtain wall work. None of that experience is recognized in the bill as introduced. Finally, by granting glazer-specific representation on the Board of Industrial Trade without comparable recognition of other affected trades, the bill creates a regulatory structure that would allow one trade to define the scope and qualifications of work historically performed by others. Ironworkers Local 5 in our district is not asking the council to choose sides in a jurisdictional dispute. We are asking the council not to litigate one. If the goal is safety and quality, those goals are achieved by recognized federally registered apprenticeship training, preserving existing trade jurisdictional practices, and ensuring that licensing statutes do not reassign work by definition. As written, B26-0422 would disrupt established construction practices in the district, threaten project delivery, and undermine a skilled workforce that has safely installed curtain wall systems here for decades. For those reasons, Ironworkers Mid-Atlantic States District Council and Local 5 respectfully oppose the bill as introduced and urges the council to reject or substantially amend it to remove jurisdictional language. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Just note, folks, if you're here to join the Zoom, please make sure your name appears as your name. Otherwise, we don't know to promote you. So we will get everybody who is here on this panel, even if you were supposed to be on the last panel. Sebastian, you are next.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for allowing us to testify today in front of the council. My name is Sebastian Fetzlek, political coordinator for the Mid-Atlantic Ironworkers. Firstly, I do want to highlight we are slightly, or at least disappointed that when this was introduced, the ironworkers, who are one of the largest unions doing glazing in the country and in the district, were not included as part of this conversation until this introduction became public. But as a result, I do want to continue with just stating that we do oppose this bill as written because of how it undermines historical jurisdictional divisions between some of our trades within the Building Trade Union Council, and which establish new non-neutral third-party certification requirements for our members. Ironworkers Local 5 is known for its elite state-of-the-art training facility. It is registered with the USDOL as well as with the DC Employment Services. Our facility and program provides a 4-year required in-class and hands-on training for a variety of metalworking, including in glazing, such as for curtain wall. The proposed certification is championed by a non-neutral third party that does not represent the Ironworkers Union and our contractors, and therefore is inherently biased towards other crafts. Imposing this redundant certification would force our members who are already fully trained and qualified through a rigorous 4-year federal and DC registered program to jump through more hoops and creating unnecessary barriers to work. Additionally, the AGMT program introduces significant hidden costs, including $1,400 certification fee and a $600 recertification fee every 4 years. We represent thousands of craft workers, and just to certify 100 would represent hundreds of thousands of dollars of additional fees going to this nonprofit organization. And at a time of increased cost of living and rising demand for skilled trade workers, we don't think this is the most appropriate time to initiate this certification. Additionally, this does impede on some of the process or recognition of jurisdictional boundaries within the trades, considering that ironworkers have for decades done glazing work. And a lot of these disputes that we may have had have been negotiated and agreed upon at the NAP2, North America's Building Trade Unions Council, and they have been committed and worked on. However, introducing this certification would create basically circumvent this process. And so it's another reason why we would ask not to have this move forward. Therefore, I do urge the committee to oppose this bill in its current state, preserve the independent process for unions to determine jurisdictional disputes, and not to make legal definitions that create or reassign jurisdictional craft work. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Amelia Kama.
Good morning, Chairperson Nadeau. My name is Amelia Kalma. I'm the director of the Wilkes Initiative on Housing Policy at the DC Policy Center. And today I'm testifying in opposition to B26-0422, as the bill would add new requirements and financial burdens for a small group of skilled specialty trade workers without a clear safety or quality problem that existing rules cannot address. At a moment where the district should be reducing frictions in housing delivery and expanding access to high-wage jobs, the bill moves in the opposite direction. It raises barriers to work, narrows the labor supply, and increases costs that will inevitably land on the projects and then the residents. The bill creates a licensing regime without any evidence of a problem to solve. We already regulate glazing work through contractor licensing under DLCP, and contractors are accountable for the safety and performance of all subcontractor trades. We haven't identified any systemic failures, nor have we demonstrated that project performance or public safety problems stem from a lack of individual glazier licensing. Glaziers today here in DC are relatively well paid too. So this is a pretty high paying job. In 2024, DC glaziers earned a median of $76,000, which was the 4th highest pay in the US, behind only Massachusetts, Hawaii, and Rhode Island. And the median hourly wage was almost $37 per hour, far above the national median for glaziers. The glazing workforce here, however, is fairly small. As of a 2023 estimate, which is the last one we had available, it was only 240 people. So these are not low-wage, unregulated workers in need of protection. They're a skilled, highly compensated, and comparatively small workforce. And this bill risks shrinking that already constrained workforce. It adds new requirements for the AGMT certification, apprenticeships, and a requirement to employ at least 3 licensed glaziers to get a business license. And these requirements come with a bunch of hidden costs. So right now, the existing fees for glaziers are $655 for commercial, $442 for residential. And this bill adds an additional $260 in licensing fees and the AGMT certification, whose requirements include 5 years of work experience and a testing fee of $1,400, which could increase every year once it's required, and a $600 recertification fee. Residential glaziers in Maryland and Virginia lose on average 730 days of work due to licensing and certification requirements. And that could definitely happen here. This requirement would make DC the most onerous place in the nation to work as a glazier. So in sum, this bill does not provide clear benefits relative to its costs. It just creates duplicative credentialing, new fees layered on top of current basic business licenses, and workforce constraints on this trade. So we share the council's commitment to safety, but additional licensing and certification is not the only or the best tool. AGMT certification already exists as an optional license that many contractors obtain, and projects can choose certified providers if they wish, without forcing it on every project in the district. And for these reasons, we respectfully urge the committee to decline to create this new glazier license. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, we'll hear from Chad Reese.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Chad Reese, and I'm a senior policy advisor with the Institute for Justice. IJ is a nonprofit public interest law firm and advocacy organization that's been researching and litigating and working on occupational licensing issues and legislation for more than 30 years. While I understand the committee's commitment to ensuring that construction in the district is done safely and efficiently, I am concerned that the current bill is far too sweeping and that licensing is likely to introduce significant problems without raising the quality of the actual services provided in DC. IJ's years of work in this field include research that shows licensing does not improve the quality of services provided, both in situations where one state licensed an occupation and another does not, and in situations where two states license the same occupation, but one has more onerous requirements. But licensing does increase the barriers to working in licensed occupations. I'll second the comments made by Ms. Kalma regarding the barriers to economic opportunities created by licensure and the hidden costs of this bill inherent in the high testing fees required by AGMT that have been mentioned by a few witnesses so far. And importantly, occupational licensing is one of the most extreme ways a state can choose to regulate a profession. Creates a one-size-fits-all method of training, and gives existing industry stakeholders outsized influence in who is allowed to compete with them for business in the field. Other methods, including titling certifications, site inspections, bonding and insurance, can all achieve the same or significantly greater safety benefits without creating the bar to employment for an entire industry that licensing is prone to. Individual glaziers with years of experience, but without the time and money to go through a specific AGMT testing process, could find themselves suddenly without a job or a way to support their family. As you heard from those representing AGMT today, they expect that process to be difficult and not to be passed even by those who are currently working in the field, presumably to the satisfaction of their employers and clients. Small contractors in particular, ready to enter the industry and compete with large developers, but who don't yet have a minimum of 3 licensed employees, will find it even harder to compete with large construction companies and developers in the districts, because those large developers will be more easily able to absorb the additional costs of licensing. Second, this bill in particular locks in place AGMT certification as the district's method of determining qualifications. As a third-party certifier, that would give them the ability to change its testing fees or requirements the day after such a bill was passed. In essence, the council would essentially be handing over regulatory authority of an industry, not to the licensing board or DLCP, but also to a non-governmental entity that, again, as other witnesses have noted, is not an unbiased actor in this space. According to our own database of more than 2,700 licenses in place across the country, spanning 102 occupations in all 50 states in the district, I would agree with Ms. Kalma that this bill could make DC the most burdensome state in the country to work in this industry. Far from meeting and supporting the district's workforce development goals, this bill would make it significantly harder for builders to find and hire licensed talent. According to their own database and their testimony today, AGMT certified technicians number around 2,200. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are more than 50,000 glaziers employed in the United States. So This bill would require that every glazier operating in the district comply with a set of certifications currently held by just 4% of the industry. Tying an entire occupational license to a certification that's only a few years old and is limited to a tiny subset of the industry would be almost unprecedented in my experience. Finally, as Mr. Martin noted, the bill envisions a very expansive scope of practice for what is otherwise a diverse industry. The language in the bill includes large-scale construction activities like erecting walls and commercial windows, along with smaller jobs like servicing or repairing handrails. That one-size-fits-all problem, in addition to the jurisdictional issues that you've heard from others on this panel, is clear. This industry, like many others, contains far too many diverse jobs and skill sets to be captured by a single set of requirements. As Mr. Kennett himself noted, this single certification treats all glazier jobs as requiring the same training, regardless of the actual task being performed on a day-to-day basis. I want to again stress that I understand the instinct and the worthwhile need to create a safe environment for this industry. And I also do want to commend the bill for the thoughtfulness of including a path to licensure via a certified apprenticeship. But given the bill's expansive scope of practice, envisioning a single licensing framework for what is in reality an entire subset of different professions, and given the substantial barriers to employment inherent in the creation of a new license, I would urge the committee to vote no on this bill. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We'll now hear from Fred Cotting, Executive Vice President of the Ironworkers Employers Association.
Good morning. As indicated, I am Fred Cotting, and I'm here on behalf of the Ironworkers Employers Association. It goes by the acronym IWEA. The Ironworkers Association has members throughout the Washington area, including Maryland and Virginia. It's enjoyed a great relationship with the district. They have worked on large and small projects throughout the district and the neighboring jurisdictions. They include the National Stadium, the Audi Stadium, Capital One Arena, housing, school projects, as well as the Wilson Building itself. The IWA represents the largest curtain wall and window wall installers in this area. I'm here today in strong opposition to the subject bill. As noted, it creates a 19-member representing glazier contractors to the Board of Industrial Trades. There is an obvious intent to exclude the long history of the ironworkers and their contractors to perform this work. The act does not take into account the well-known fact that the large majority of public and private projects in the metro area are installed by ironworker contractors who work with ironworkers from Local 5. Glass for all unitized curtain walls and window walls is installed at the factory level, not in the field. A large majority of public and private projects in the district utilize these factory assembled and glazed products in commercial and residential projects. Curtain wall and window wall units, both stick-built and unitized systems, involve a high level of crane rigging, engineered layout work, and high-level welding techniques. All of these components are included in high-level ironworker training locally as well as nationwide. Ironworker contractors over the past 75 years have contributed a very substantial amount of funds to provide the training for ironworkers to perform this work. I would stress that the council members are invited to attend the training facilities and also to meet with the representatives who do this instruction. As noted, the skill required in layout, rigging, and installation of the units. That is a strength of the ironworkers, locally as well as nationally. The number of glazers, the number of glazers performing this work is small in comparison to that of the ironworkers. The ironworkers install and maintain these glass and metal systems known as curtain wall and window wall. They have installed these systems for generations. They are the cream of the crop. Ironworkers have extensive training requirements, which incorporate all safety requirements. And as I mentioned, council members are invited to come out and inspect their facilities. These are overseen by the Ironworkers International Union. Its international office is located at 1750 New York Avenue in the District of Columbia. Again, we strongly oppose the pending bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll also hear from Matt Tifoe.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Matt Tifoe, and I am the Director of Government Affairs at the Associated Builders and Contractors of Metro Washington, also known as ABC Metro Washington. I am speaking on behalf of more than 550 member companies that build and maintain the district's commercial, institutional, and public works infrastructure. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on this bill today. ABC Metro companies understand the importance of and invest heavily in training, certification, and professional standards. For example, through the ABC Craft Masters Training Trust, a separate 501c3 organization founded by ABC of Metro Washington, our members support comprehensive apprenticeship and construction craft training programs across 21 separate trades. And to address your question and several comments made earlier, many of our contractors already require industrial recognized certifications and participate in these programs, educational programs, that either meet or exceed prevailing industrial standards. And it's reflecting a long-standing commitment to safety, quality, and workforce development. As an organization, however, we are not convinced that there is a strong overriding rationale for Bill 26-0422. Or at least we have not heard compelling reasons articulating overall. What I'm trying to say is we have not heard from any of our contractor members in support of this proposed bill. Thus, it's difficult to fully evaluate whether this would be meaningful improvement to the conditions in the district and with additional regulatory complexity and cost, as mentioned before. But overall, our concerns are the implementation, fairness, and oversight that this certification program and board of 19 board members would create. So that is our primary concern, enforcement, and we offer 4 areas and you have my written testimony, but 4 areas that hopefully the council would take into a look. And that's the licensing standards are objective, transparent, and universally can be applicable. Excuse me. Certification requirements are not discriminatory in practice. And then the oversight mechanics promote fair and evenly handed regulations to maintain a competitive construction market and ensure that qualified contractors are evaluated on their skills and performance and not their labor affiliations. Lastly, fair and even-handed regulations is essential to maintaining a competitive construction market and ensure the quality contractors, again, are evaluated based on their skills. Finally, and it's been mentioned that we encourage the committee to consider this legislation without the broader context of the district's construction environment. It is already very difficult and expensive to build in DC, and the district is currently suffering from a lack of investment in a number of important sectors, including office and residential development. Any new licensing framework, if not implemented carefully, risks becoming another burden and cost restriction to this overall environment. So as a council, again, thank you for this opportunity, and we respectfully encourage careful consideration to this bill and any more opportunity to partake in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. We have some folks who've joined that will be adding to the panel now. First, Darius Perry.
Hey, good morning. Y'all can hear me?
Morning.
How y'all doing? My name is Darius Perry. I'm a Washington, D.C. native, born and raised in Ward 8. I currently live in Columbia Heights area. That's Ward 1. And I'm a registered Glazer apprentice. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in support of the Glazer Standard and Licensing Act of 2025. As an apprentice, I received structured on-the-job training and classroom instruction under the supervision of experienced professionals. This ensures that I learn how to perform Glazer work safely, correctly, and in compliance with building codes and industry standards. This bill recognizes the importance of proper training and accountability in the trade with safety and precision matters every day. Glazer work involves handling heavy glass, working at heights, and ensures that installation protect the public. When glass is improperly installed, the consequences can be serious, ranging from injuries to costly property damages. Licensing and standards help ensure that only trained and qualified individuals are performing this work, which protect workers, building occupants, and the public. This legislation also protects apprentices and skilled workers by creating clear pathways for training, licensing, and career advancement. It prevents untrained, unlicensed individuals from undercutting responsible contractors and driving down safety and quality standards across the industry. The Glazer Standards and Licensing Act of 2025 strengthens the construction industry by promoting workforce development, improving job site safety, and assuring a level of playing field for contractors who invest in training and professionalism. As someone building a long-term career in this trade, I respectfully urge you to support and pass this legislation. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Now we'll hear from Ricardo Cortez.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to express my gratitude for the opportunity to present this testimony today. I am testifying in support of B26-0422, Glazer Licensing Standards and Certification Act of 2025. My name is Ricardo Cortez. I am an AGMT certified instructor. I am currently training glazers throughout the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. In my daily work, I observe significant distinctions between glazers who have received formal training and those who have acquired the skill throughout on-the-job experience alone. The glass and metal systems utilized in construction have advanced considerably, becoming increasingly intricate. The installation of modern components such as curtain walls or high-performance window walls systems demands more than manual labor. It necessitates specialized technical knowledge to guarantee structural soundness, thermal efficiency, and safety. AGMT certification stands as the sole hands-on, independently accredited certification that assesses practical skills. It verifies that mechanics are competent in safely handling glass, properly sealing and installing sophisticated systems, and preventing costly failures that pose risk to both workers and the public. Instances of building leaks glass failures, or system underperformance are almost invariably linked to substandard installation practices rather than the product defects. By mandating AGMT certification for mechanics employed by contractors, this bill will ensure that the district buildings are constructed by qualified professionals who have demonstrated their competence rather than merely asserting it. This proposed legislation represents a sensible safety measure, and I offer my strong support for its passage.
Thank you very much. Finally, we'll hear from Nathaniel Lewis. Lewis, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself so you can testify?
Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, I can't hear you, but good morning again to the chairperson and members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is Nate Lewis, and I'm a Washington, D.C. based licensed glazing contractor. I support the Glazing Standards and License Act of 2025 because it strengthens our workforce and ensure a long-term career opportunity for glazers. The AGMT certification required in this bill is not just a test, it's a comprehensive assessment of skills, safety practices, and professionalism, which is much needed in this industry. It validates the workers have been hands-on, capability to safely install complex glazing systems. For contractors like me, this creates a reliable, skilled labor pool whom have been certified and licensed to meet employer and industry needs. For workers, it creates a pathway to advancement and long-term employment. And for the district, it ensures the public projects are built by certified professionals who understand modern installation requirements and safety protocols. This bill is good for business, good for workers, and good for the district. And this is something that's much needed. We heard about it a few years ago. I was excited, very interested in providing this certification because it allows more opportunities to companies such as ours. Thank you for your time. And that's it.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay. So for Mr. Martin, Mr. Pikulek, and Mr. Cotting, many other states do require a license to operate as a glazier. Is this jurisdictional issue also a problem in those places, or do the other states clarify that iron workers are not to be included in the definition of glazers?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So I would be curious to know what many other states, namely what those are. We know that Oregon, a bill was passed. We know that Rhode Island, there was a bill passed. Both smaller states for this type of work.
And Virginia and Maryland.
Well, Virginia, Maryland, no. So there's no, not that I'm aware of. Honestly, I was, before I became a union representative, I was a ornamental architectural metal superintendent for a national glass and glazing company. I performed that work for many years, and never have ever had an issue with what's being introduced here. in fact, this creates a barrier. I would tell you that these companies, these larger companies, will tell you that they have difficulty time now utilizing the Glazers Union and the Ironworkers Union with providing a significant amount of workforce. And, so I've never ever run into this problem as a superintendent in Virginia, in Maryland, in DC, and I've worked on some pretty significant and large projects in those areas.
Let me ask you a question. So DC has been leading on these building energy performance standards. I mean, we've done a lot of work to lead the nation in this area. Are those other jurisdictions that you've done the work attempting to have green building standards like ours?
I do believe there are other states. I would be speaking not really factual because I don't have those facts in front of me, but I know that, I mean, everybody wants more efficient buildings, right? So every major city is pushing that, right? And it's not just the district. A lot of that starts in design. A lot of that starts in manufacturing, right? And then when the product comes to the field, it takes qualified people to install it. We qualify those people through a registered apprenticeship. We teach specifically in ornamental and architectural metals, the ironwork.
But is that, I mean, is everybody on these jobs in the places that you work required to have a certified apprenticeship?
Not all, well, most public projects, yes, but not private. Private doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of what we're doing with the BEPS is private.
Yeah.
I'm less worried about the public projects because we have other standards.
Yeah.
But this does worry me because, as has been said today, if we don't know that the people installing these materials have the highest certification, we're not going to meet these standards. And ostensibly, the builders will have reported that they've met the standards, and they might not even know that their building is not going to reduce the energy loss.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that it's been stated today about the unknowing of the projects that they speak of that are not meeting these standards, right? So it's like, okay, well, name the projects. I've been on, I've the Ronald Reagan building. I've worked on that. I've worked on Union Station. There's no glass falling out. There's no, so.
No, of course not. I mean, we're not talking about catastrophic
right
life safety issues because we would have all heard about those. But when you start taking measurements, I mean, frankly, the feds aren't going to do any of this anyway. So that's not really my issue as much as all of the private building. Feds kind of do what they want here in the District of Columbia, unfortunately. But no, I mean, this is about next gen, right?
Sure.
Life and safety, of course, is highest priority, but like, do we have airtight buildings? Are we building passive house? We're supposed to be getting to net zero here.
Yeah, so I think that starts with design, right? I don't think that starts with somebody installing.
Oh, it doesn't start with the install, but it
Right.
certainly ends with it.
Right. And there's specification, there's shop drawings, there's people that are in charge of those projects that are trained, and there's testing that's done on these units in off-site prior to installation. So there's a lot that goes into the performance of a unitized system or a glass system or a window wall or any of that. So there's a lot of testing that is provided prior to it even reaching the field.
I would like to add something, Madam Chairman. The iron workers at Local 5, they installed a number of the items at the Pentagon, which unfortunately on 9/11 were hit by an airplane. Those systems that they put in were strong enough to really minimize what could have occurred. Iron workers out of Local 5 have been sent by the federal government to do work on embassies throughout the world. Iron Workers Local 5 has a class of installers which are you can't beat. And if you should happen to cross the Woodrow Wilson Bridge and you see that MGM project at the other Maryland end, you will see the finest curtain wall installation that is imaginable. So with that, I support Mr. Martin's comments that the companies which are developing these unitized systems are taking into account the energy performance requirements. And those units coming out now are amongst the best in the world. Thank you.
And just in addition, I wanted to state that as a reminder that the AGMT certification process is not one that had included the ironworkers as part of, kind of going through what requires to be certified and their process, the costs. And so it's still, that problem still arises, is that it's not something that the ironworkers who do so much of this glazing might be, we might have some other standards we follow and other things, but we weren't a part of this conversation. We weren't part of this certification process structuring. And so we think if there is a concern about, how are we certifying glazers, we should kind of step back and figure out a better process that includes all parties who are producing glazers, but not just rely on this non-neutral entity.
So why couldn't iron workers get this certification?
Well, first of all, we don't know much about it, right? So we weren't included in it. So it would be great to know who it's made up of, who are the people that are on the board.
I'm sorry, I specifically mean, why couldn't iron workers get an AGM?
They could. They absolutely could.
They could, right? So
Yep.
why would having an AGMT certification requirement exclude iron workers then?
First of all, we don't know much about the certification. So I mean, ironworkers we have a labor management group similar to the glazers that we have a rigging certification that's the ironworker rigger certification, right?
Oh, sorry. Let me back up just a second. So
Yeah.
I just asked why iron workers couldn't get the certification, and you said they could.
I don't know much about it. I mean, how do we access it? So how do we access this? Where is it taught? We don't know much about the program at all. That's been the thing, is that we haven't even. Can we get it if they offer it? Sure, 100%.
Okay, got it. And so iron workers, when they do this work, they get, my understanding is, 1 year of training. Is that right?
No, we have a 4-year apprenticeship, and we teach.
You do?
We teach in
the local
year of architectural ornamental metal, and and then there's also jobs, on-site job training
for the glazing specifically.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Cotting, you had mentioned some very important projects in Maryland and Virginia. Maryland and Virginia do have licensing requirements for glazers.
Not that I'm aware of. No. There is a licensing board that is established in Virginia for a long, long time. And contractors are supposed to submit applications and get approval by that particular state board. But glazing contractors should also have those licenses from that state board, as well as ironworker contractors, carpenter contractors, general contractors, and everyone.
So is the big disagreement here over which board in the District of Columbia would be issuing this license, the contracting board versus the trade board? Is that what everyone's upset about?
I think that the upset is that this was promulgated without taking into consideration the immense amount of work that the iron workers do, and that the cost that the iron worker contractors sustain in the training program, it's a phenomenal amount of money that is already being spent by contractors in conjunction with Local 5.
Okay. I understand there's concerns with requiring a specific exam and certification in law, but there are many other states that require glazers pass some type of exam. So why should we be satisfied with solely apprenticeships rather than exam like other places?
I don't know if that question is directed to the panel broadly. I'd be happy to offer
Great.
some comment on that, Chair.
You're welcome to.
I think the important thing is ensuring that we don't have one training model for any industry that assumes that there is one way that people can learn and generate appropriate job skills. You noted that there's a problem with requiring a specific certification. I think that that's a good point, and that's why this would be a particularly extreme version of a licensing law and certification. But I do think that making sure that we're not requiring folks to go through something that particularly has a higher upfront cost for a job that may have a lot of folks who don't have $1,400 laying around to take a test, even if they are already qualified, or the ability to navigate the apprenticeship pathway paperwork if they've been doing this work. So I think, for instance, apprenticeships are great if you're entering the industry. But as I mentioned, the certification that's being discussed in the bill is only held by about 4% of people that are doing this work now. Those people would have to suddenly go through and recertify all the work that they have been doing. So it's a considerable burden being added to them, even with the apprenticeship model added on.
Mr. Tifoe?
Yeah, I would just add, without clear safeguards, there is a risk that, licensing standards or the enforcement decisions within the certification can be applied very inconsistently or used in a way that discourages fair competition within the construction industry as a whole. So, that's one of our primary concerns. That being that, our contract members have not, asked for this piece of legislation either, but trying to answer your question.
Okay. Some of you noted that contractors who are hiring glazers typically require industry recognized certifications or apprenticeships, but I wonder how an individual consumer could go about finding a qualified glazer. With other trade professions like plumbing, a consumer can look up an individual's license to ensure they're certified and there haven't been any complaints. What options do consumers have when trying to find a glazer for a window repair or other small project?
I'll just note it's if you simply do a Google search for certified glazier at AGMT's website comes up, and they have a database of their 2,200 folks who are certified under their program. So if the concern is folks who want this specific certification, can they find them? A simple Google search is enough to qualify.
So some of you also mentioned a glazier shortage in the district. What else could we do to encourage more people to become glazers or recruit glazers to come into the district?
That is the million-dollar question. that we're all trying to figure out. We're all grasping for more labor, more jobs, right? Some pipeline of jobs that we can have in the district that will, provide, a career of glazing. More jobs is always better, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a small industry. There's not like it's a lot of demand. Like it's not like for electricians where they got all these data centers and they need 500 electricians tomorrow. You might have 15 or 20 glazers on a class A office building in the district.
when I think about other industries in the district where we've had shortages and how we've gone about trying to build up those workforces, we've really focused on avoiding a race to the bottom. And I'll give you one example, and that would be early childhood educators. And so knowing that we need more of them because we need more care in the district, we launched a program for more certification and required under law that early childhood educators would have to have a certain degree by a certain time in order to continue teaching in the District of Columbia. And the conversation we had at that time was very similar to the one we're having right now. There were some people who were very concerned that this would have the opposite effect, or that, it would be too costly. But we stuck with this to do some extensions to make sure everybody could get their training. We subsidized some of the training. But now we have an early childhood educator workforce that has a career path, and we've lifted up the entire workforce and have been able to expand it because more people see the entry into this field is lucrative, even if they have to do a little extra training. And I can't help but compare the situation because that is another field that has always been a pretty low barrier to entry. A lot of Black and brown women working there, perhaps similar to a lot of Black and brown men working in this field. But we really have been insistent here in the district on creating those standards and committing to addressing the costs of the career path as well. We, for example, established the pay equity fund for early childhood educators so that we would know that their salaries would keep going up. So you wouldn't necessarily have to do that piece in the building industry, of course, because the industry needs those folks. But to me, this seems very similar. Listen, I understand that there is some frustration on the way the bill came about. Some people feel excluded in that part of the process. I wasn't there for that. I'm the chair of the committee to whom the bill was referred. I didn't write the bill. But it seems to me that rather than dwelling on that, it would be best to think about how we can work together to ensure the highest standards for this industry, where the District of Columbia is demanding more with the building energy standards. So this is where we are in the district. I'd like to try to compare to other states so that we have benchmarks. But we are different. We are different in a lot of ways. Let me ask some questions of Mr. Reese and Ms. Kalma. I understand you're concerned about how this may increase building costs, particularly if the AGMT exam and certification is mandated. If the license was designed to mirror glazier licensing in other states, or if it was more similar to other DLCP occupational licenses, and I'll note the DLCP has done a great job of reducing barriers to licensure, would you still have the same concern about its impact on increasing building costs?
I think our concern, or at least my concern, is that it's not like the other DLCP licenses. It's a third party certification that makes its own rules and its own credentialing requirements, which makes it fundamentally different than anything
Well,
that
my
we set
question
up
is,
here in the
my
district.
question was if the license was designed to mirror Glazer licensing in other states or more similar to the other DLCP occupational licenses, would you still have this concern?
I think that's a hypothetical question, and
No, it's not. We're in the committee and I get to decide. So it's not a hypothetical question, and I'd like your expertise.
in general, I think that it wouldn't be an issue if it mirrored other certification. However, I just don't think certification is required. In this case, we haven't demonstrated that buildings are less energy efficient. We haven't demonstrated any of these failures that we're concerned about, that we're offering credentialing as a solution to. And so I just want us to make sure that we're not adding additional credentialing and workforce barriers to a situation that really doesn't require it, where there aren't safety issues, where there aren't energy issues that we know about.
And I think I would echo some of the same concerns as Ms. Kalma. As I mentioned in my testimony, there's also a scope of practice issue, I think, with the bill as written. We are spending most of our time talking about both the safety issues, although, as you noted, we're not talking really about catastrophic health and safety risk here, and energy efficient windows and walls. But again, as I noted, the bill also includes someone who wants to repair a handrail or an internal sort of wall for a glass wall for an office. And so I think, to Ms. Kalma's point, and what my concern would be as well, even if the bill were tweaked a little bit, is the danger of an occupational license for an entire industry is trying to lump a number of what are really different jobs and different skill sets into the same training regime, even if that is something that's designed by DLCP entirely and we take AGMT out of the equation. I think it's very difficult to devise a specific test. The other thing I'd say is it really does depend on which states you're looking at. About half of states don't regulate or provide a specific Glazer license. So I would not call it a common license. And a number of other places have things like de minimis thresholds, where if you are doing Glazer-related contracting work, you might have to have an additional certification. But if it's less than $1,000 or something like that, it's a Schedule C type of contract. So it really depends on which states we would be looking at mirroring. But again, I would echo Ms. Kalma's point that I think trying to create a one-size-fits-all license for a diverse array of skill sets and creating one sort of pathway to what we believe as the district is appropriate to do this job is not going to be attainable through a piece of legislation.
Mr. Bukluk, I'll come to you, but Mr. Reese, you mentioned titling certifications earlier. Can you say more about how those work?
Sure. So the biggest difference between a titling certification and occupational license is that a titling certification tells you what kind of certification you have. So for me, for instance, you could create a public policy government witness titling certification, where if I wanted to say I am a certified hearing witness, I could go and take a test, and then I could tell customers or someone who wanted to hire me that I have that certification. And in some states, titling certifications are common. If you want to advertise your services as having obtained a certain certification, you can do that. But to do the work, you wouldn't be in violation of state statute or municipal code if you did the work without that, as long as you weren't falsely representing yourself. So it's more of a disclaimer about making sure clients and customers understand what kind of testing and what kind of certification you've done so that there's full information, but it doesn't create the same barrier to entry that a full license does.
Mr. Kulik, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, so I just want to kind of echo some of the discussion about other states having this sort of license and certification. But our local 5 covers Maryland, DC, and Virginia. We haven't used a GMT in Maryland or Virginia, so I'm not sure what the references for those states are. And our research also shows that AGMT certification is only in Rhode Island and Oregon. So every other state is utilizing some sort of other process. And it kind of goes back to why is this a third party, this non-neutral third party versus, how do we mimic this in a more neutral way for our trade to be a part of the conversation and part of that training curriculum process.
And just to clarify on that too, because we were just, Mr. Martin and I were talking about this. So is there any reason iron workers couldn't get that certification?
Our concern is, I mean, we could, but this goes back to if it's a third party, the expectations can change, the cost can change. We don't know how it's governed. And so that's the biggest issue here for us. You know, as some other folks mentioned, this could pass, and the day after, the standards are totally changed and outlined in a way that maybe is incapable for us to adequately train somebody, or the cost is tripled or quadrupled. We don't know these things. And so that's why I think it's more reasonable to step back and figure out this more neutral process, if that is the concern of the district, that there is some sort of certification created.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you all very much. Oh,
Madam
go ahead, Mr.
Chairman,
Cotting.
I have, you sparked a memory when you discussed the healthcare issues. Iron Workers Local 5 used to send, and occasionally still does, all the job fairs. And they also used to send their instructors down to the local high school. The guidance counselors in the high schools and the principals welcomed that. Then there was a shift away from the construction side to the more general side, computers, technical, and other things. So the construction element got eliminated at a couple of the high schools. I just passed that on for informational purposes because it really would help if the high schools would then go back to what they used to do with the construction trades. Just an observation.
Very good. Thank you for that. Well, thank you all very much for your testimony today. We're going to move on to our government witness. Appreciate your time. Okay, I'm now going to call April Randall, Legislative Director for the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection, who is there in person in room 412. April, I'm going to swear you in. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you are about to give to the Committee on Public Works and Operations is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. And support services, could you help us with the camera? It's going to need to be focused on her since I'm virtual, not on the dais. Okay, you may begin your testimony when you're ready.
No problem. Thank you very much. And good morning, Chairperson Nadeau, committee members, and staff. I am April Randall, the Legislative Director with the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection. DLCP's mission is to protect the economic interests of businesses, residents, and visitors of the district by issuing business and occupational licenses, as well as investigating and enforcing the Consumer Protection Procedures Act. DLCP licenses and regulates non-health occupations set forth in DC Official Code Section 47-2853.04A. We do this with the assistance of our 9 boards and commissions, including the Board of Industrial Trades, who has been mentioned often in today's hearing as this bill would impact them. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today, Council Member. While this testimony is on behalf of DLCP, I did confer with, and the agency did confer with the Department of Buildings regarding this legislation, as it will impact them as well, being that they oversee and handle and regulate the construction codes, the building establishments and units in the built environment. And they agree with the agency's position that I am giving today. Bill 26-0422 would establish licensing requirements for glazier contractors and licensing and certification requirements for glaziers. Specifically, the legislation will require an applicant for a glazier contractor license to employ no fewer than 3 permanent or temporary glaziers, be bonded and insured, and meet other requirements established by rule. An applicant for a glazier license will have to pass the knowledge-based and practical examination administered by the architectural glass and metal technician, the AGMT, and satisfy any other requirements established by rule. It will also establish a license and renewal fee and require the board to establish rules within 365 days. Lastly, the bill would establish a pathway for licensure as a glazier contractor or glazier prior to the promulgation of these rules. We understand the intent of the bill, and we share the council's commitment as well as the witnesses who testified here today, their desire to want to establish building standards to protect residents, visitors, as well as the workers themselves. That is something that we share. And ensuring that they adhere to national and industry standards and improving the safety so that we can prevent injury and harm. While we share this commitment, we do oppose Bill 26-0422, as the legislation will make it more difficult for individuals to obtain work as a glazier contractor or glazier, and thus make a livable wage, and increase the cost of residential and commercial projects and make the district less inviting to businesses and development. The hallmark of Mayor Bowser's growth agenda is to increase economic development in the district by making it more affordable and inviting for businesses to come here to do work and to establish the district as their home base. We see that with the number of technology companies, universities, and businesses coming to the district. The return of the Commanders with the RFK Stadium will spur additional economic growth for the city as well. This bill could hinder these efforts by driving up the cost for these projects due to companies having to hire licensed glazier contractors and glaziers, while ensuring buildings are constructed in accordance with the industry standards, including installation of glass, metal, and aluminum, can be achieved in other ways besides imposing licensing and certification standards that are costly and unproven, and that in turn could increase the cost of development. Another means of spurring economic growth is by removing barriers to obtaining an occupational professional license, particularly for the non-health occupations and professions. Since its inception, DLCP, with the assistance of our boards and commissions, has taken deliberate steps to remove barriers to licensure and create pathways to employment. We have achieved this for various occupations and professions, including architects, the real estate appraisers, barbers, and cosmetologists. The mayor has also recently introduced the Accountancy Practices Amendment Act of 2025, which will establish an alternative pathway for licensure for certified public accountants. This was a bill that was at the impetus and brought forward by the Board of Accountancy. And so I just want to mention that as to say that our boards, the members of those boards, experts in their fields, are helping to drive these industry standards and determining how and in what direction they should go. The Glazier Licensing Standards and Certification Act of 2025 would counter Mayor Bowser's initiatives and what we as the agency have been doing by removing costly and arbitrary barriers to licensure. This bill would impose additional costs to those seeking to become a licensed glazier, as they would have to pay for an AGMT examination, test preparation materials, and the licensing fees. These costs could discourage individuals from becoming licensed glaziers and in turn becoming glaziers altogether. A dearth of glaziers could detrimentally impact the glazier contractor industry in the district, given the bill's requirements for the glazier contractors to employ no less than 3 licensed glaziers. Further, these additional licensing and certification requirements could pose a barrier to those particularly recent high school graduates who may not want to go to college but see a trade as a means of meeting the minimum wage and acquiring a livable wage for themselves. Thus, the bill could reduce job opportunities for district residents, particularly young people who may otherwise engage in criminal activity. We want to create employment opportunities while at the same time protecting our community. Additionally, in reviewing other states' laws, few states have laws like Bill 26-0422. While approximately 25 states require glazier contracting as a specialty of a contractor license, such as Virginia, only 2 states have a glazier license similar to what the district is proposing today. Connecticut and Florida are those 2 states. As I mentioned, other states such as Virginia treat glazier contractor as a specialty of the glazier contractor license, and they have their respective contractor boards overseeing these professions. In addition, only 2 states, Rhode Island and Oregon, require the AGMT certification before public projects of a certain dollar amount. While one of the reasons given for the bill involves an unlicensed glazing contractor who was fired after a 3 by 5 15-foot acrylic panel fell from the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission's headquarters in Montgomery County, Maryland. It should be noted that since that time, Maryland has not amended its laws to require glaziers or glazier contractors to be licensed or AGMT certified. While what transpired is unfortunate, that incident alone should not prompt the onerous administrative change to the occupational professional regulatory landscape. More research and analysis is warranted for this area, especially where the risk of driving businesses and workers from the district to Maryland or Virginia, where these licensing and certification requirements do not exist. And I will also note that would impact reciprocity and the ability to obtain work, vice versa, and from one state to the other. Finally, if the council were to consider this bill and move it forward, there would be a fiscal impact to the district, particularly our agency. The Board of Industrial Trades is DLCP's largest board with 15 members covering over 10 trades, including HVAC engineers, steam operating engineers, plumbers, electricians. DLCP's other boards unlike DLCP's other boards, there are only 3 staff members and 1 attorney assigned to this board under current conditions and could use additional staffing. But should this bill pass, at least 2 additional staff members will be needed to handle the additional applications and complaints that this board will receive. Also, enhancements to the licensing database will also be necessary for the applications and the renewal applications that the board will receive. While we oppose Bill 26-0422 as drafted, we do support the council's intent, as I stated previously, as an alternative to establishing a new licensing and certification requirement for glaziers and glazier contractors and placing them with the Board of Industrial Trades. The council could consider other alternatives, particularly as in other states, and I've already mentioned Virginia. It could treat glazier contractors as a specialty of a contractor license. This could be achieved by placing the regulation and the onerous responsibility of determining the education, examination, licensing requirements for glazier contractors and glaziers with the Board of Construction Managers and General Contractors, which the council established in the General Contractor Licensing Amendment Act of 2024. Although the legislation has not been funded, should the council do so, this could be the more appropriate board for determining these requirements for those trades. The Board of Construction Managers and General Contractors, for example, will have the specialized knowledge and experience in glazing work to be able to ascertain what the certification, examination, training requirements should be. And second, consistent with other jurisdictions, the council should consider amending the bill to remove the AGMT certification requirement. As mentioned, only Rhode Island and Oregon require the AGMT certification requirement. We have heard from witnesses today that many developers and contractors require that of their workers on their own. So to require that via legislation, we do not think is appropriate or necessary at this time. Councilmember Nadeau, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to testify before you today, and I look forward to answering any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Ms. Randall. I appreciate your testimony. What is currently needed to operate as a glazier or a glazier contractor in the District of Columbia?
Thank you for the question. So glaziers right now is considered, if one were to want to engage in this work, they would get either the general contractor construction manager license, which is a business license, so they can do work on commercial property. If they want to do both commercial and residential property, they would get that license along with the home improvement salesperson's license. Or if they're just doing residential work, it would be the home improvement license in addition to the home improvement salesperson's license.
Got it. So a basic license, nothing skilled.
Correct. It's similar to what would, it's the basic construction general manager license that we have. And so there's isn't specificity. We do not ask exactly what type of work within that construction license that you will handle. That is the basic license that they will receive. Now, should the other bill, the general contractor bill, pass, those license categories, those basic business licenses, and then transfer over to that new board that was determine what those licensing, education, examination requirements would be.
Does DLCP?
I'm
sorry.
No, I'm just saying currently it's just the basic business license, but yes.
Okay. Does DLCP receive complaints about glaziers or glazier related work?
We have not, and I have confirmed, I've reached out and confirmed that with our enforcement unit. We have not received any complaints.
Why is the Board of Construction Managers and General Contractors a better fit than the Board of Industrial Trades?
No, that's a fair question. And one is how both contractor is defined under this new bill versus, in addition to how glazier is defined in this bill. It's involving the installation, construction, repairs of the building. Even though you're talking about installation of glass, aluminum, metal, the broader definition under the general contractor board, I'm paraphrasing now, it's a very long title.
Yeah.
Will encompass that, and thus will have the specialized individuals, appointees that will be more familiar with that work, and it would tie in more consistently. As we've heard today, everyone's talking about construction, which is what that board was seeking to do, and the council sought to establish that board, recognizing that it needed additional attention into establishing those requirements. So if you were to place this, should the board council want to proceed in one way, doing it in that vein, which is also akin to what other states have done, it's more consistent, it's in more alignment with standards in other states, and it would just make more sense versus what the Board of Industrial Trades is doing, what they cover, the HVAC engineers, electricians, plumbers, etc.
What? Okay, I got it. What professions will be regulated under the Board of Construction Managers and General Contractors once the bill is funded and the board is established?
So it would be all the commercial construction workers, their contractors, also those that handle residential properties, residential construction will also be covered under that board. And so that's similar to Virginia. You can then they will be able to tease out different specialties. So in Virginia, the glazier license, or the glazier is a specialty under their general contractor license.
Is legislation required to establish that specialty?
I would not believe so. I think you'll probably be able to do it by regulation, but because that board will also have to do rulemaking.
Okay.
And may I also just add one more thing regarding the AGMT certification? While Rhode Island and Oregon are those two states that are in the only two states require AGMT certification, they just recently passed their legislation, fairly recently. And so they are actually extended to when the workers are actually required to acquire that certification is actually not until 2027. So it gives them a longer leeway than even what this bill would necessarily do.
Okay. What professions are regulated under the Board of Industrial Trades?
the steam engineers, steam operating engineers, asbestos workers, HVAC engineers, plumbers, and electricians, gas fitting operators, and the AC air conditioning heating operators are also under that board.
Are there any other trades or construction work that's licensed in the district other than what's regulated under these boards?
No.
And what's typically required to obtain a license for these professions? Excuse me.
Bless you. No problem. Bless you. It varies by the trade. So for example, I can just tell you refrigeration, plumbing, gas fitting, they do have an examination, but not all of them have an examination. Most of it's like work-based, practical experience. So it varies by the trade within the board, but that is thus one of the reasons why making sure that should the council proceed in this vein of wanting to establishing a licensing requirement for glaziers or glazier contractors, placing it with the right board, because the importance of these boards and the board members is they track the industry standards, they track the trends to determine exactly what certification, education, training requirements are necessary for what trades. They're not all the same. It's not a one size fits all model.
For the ones that do have exams, any idea how that came about?
By regulations. So it's not in legislation. The boards established it by regulations, and that was by many of them. And most of these trades are governed by trade associations, national bodies, and so it's consistent with national standards.
For those that do have an exam requirement, are there typically multiple exams or certifications accepted, or is it just the one?
I have to look. Most of it's usually just the one, but I can get back to you on that.
Thank you. I would appreciate it.
Sure.
How does DLCP or the board determine what exams or certifications are acceptable for licensure?
It's primarily the board. So our boards are the ones with the expertise. Their board members are the ones with the expertise and knowledge. They're members of these national bodies, associations. They are tracking the standards, the trends, determining what is necessary, and they make recommendations to the director and to the mayor to then determine what changes are necessary, whether it's amending our regulations, which we have done, or if it's amending the code itself, as I gave one example with accountancy. But that is within the purview role and responsibilities of our boards.
Okay, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but I'm just trying to get more specific. So do any of the licenses allow for completion of a federally registered apprenticeship program in lieu of passing an exam where an exam is otherwise required?
I can check. I believe there are maybe some, but I can get back to you on that. And definitely, we support apprentices. So we did actually really like that provision. That is something that we're seeing across many of our boards and commissions, not just within the Board of Industrial Trades, but others as well. And I'll give an example. The Board of Barber and Cosmetology is looking at will be reviewing its apprenticeship programs, because we know that that is an alternative way of acquiring licensure for many of these professions.
Absolutely. I guess one of the things that I would ask as you're looking at that is to ensure that the apprenticeships that we allow are registered or certified apprenticeships, as opposed to apprenticeships that are offered for a profit, which we know can sometimes happen, and we don't want our people being scammed.
Certainly.
Okay. Does DLCP support a license that would treat glacier contracting as a specialty of the general contracting license if it didn't require the AGMT certification?
We don't necessarily believe that additional licensure is necessary. That it was a nice alternative for something the board to consider, because we already have a structure in place, but we still would not support the AGMT certification. It is too new, not incorporated, required by other states.
No, I got
especially
that
under-
part.
Oh, no, certainly. Oh, no, I understand.
But the question
Councilmember.
was about the rest of it.
Sure,
Yeah.
and so if it was a specialty under another license type as that's more akin to the Virginia model, that's something that we would be more inclined to have a conversation around. So just as this bill is currently drafted, we have concerns with. We do want to make sure that we're not also just in a whole scheme of things creating additional requirements and barriers that make it difficult for people to get to work. And
Understood.
so we're always looking in that realm, whether it's creating new licenses, creating new certifications, et cetera. How can we still get people to work, not making that arduous? So if it's a subset under an existing license, it's a little bit something that we could already do, be more inclined to consider because we already have a structure there or that framework there.
Okay. That is all I have for you today. And I thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. This concludes today's public hearing. If you have not yet submitted written testimony for the record, please do so on the Council Hearing Management site by 5:30 p.m. on December 31st, 2025. The time is now 11:32 and this hearing is adjourned.